Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you spending some time with us, and boy, do we have an interesting guest here that will make it worthwhile. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hi, good afternoon, Fred.
And joining us is a name you should know, John Rich, the Director of Autonomous Vehicle and Technology Development at the Ford Motor Company. John, it is great to have you with us.
It's great to be with you guys and great to talk to you guys again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been, I guess, since Florida November, and
sometime pre-COVID. It's all a blur.
It's all a blur. It is all a blur, isn't it? Whatever. A lot has happened.
Sure has. Well, John, let's start out with a brief history of what Ford's efforts have been in the autonomous vehicle arena.
Yeah, our efforts and our involvement in AV has been long, and it's taken a few turns. You guys may know we were I think the only OEM in the finals of the 2005 DARPA challenge. Originally, I think we took home $1 million of prize money out of that, running a big Super Duty across the desert. And we returned in 2007, 2009, having a small but good team involvement early on in the early days. And that was really the genesis of what became an incredible hype curve on self-driving, and a lot of different companies throwing monies and efforts and a lot of brain power into the space. We continued on working through that, but the acceleration after obviously Google stepping in 2009. Accelerating a program with again a lot of smart people, and frankly a lot of money. It became very much of an arms race, and a set of efforts across the tech industry and the auto industry that was running faster than we were. In 2017, we took stock of that and took a very different approach with some very good people out of the tech world, and we funded what became known as Argo, and great name if you understand Greek mythology. Really appropriate, something that guides and protects. But we funded an initial, a nascent effort. And got behind some really good people. The speed with which Argo accelerated blew me away. I was fortunate enough to be in the small team that really pursued that idea and pushed that idea forward internal to Ford, and effectively the venture funding of a startup AV company. And the Argo team accelerated in a manner that I frankly didn't think was possible. Frankly, I learned a lot about what is doable with the right incentives, the right capital, and the right brain power. But they moved from February 2017, when we initially funded. We had 2 guys, 0 lines of code, and 0 vehicles, to a sizable company today that has just absorbed AID in Germany, as you know. I think the Volkswagen effort, and has really become a global, a real global powerhouse in the AV world. And in that, in those 3 years that have, so much has transpired and so much acceleration has taken place that it's for a traditional auto guy like myself, it's actually it's wonderful to be a part of, but frankly, I didn't see this as possible. The art of the possible, to the extent that it has come into fruition. We are now introducing our 4th set of prototypes with Argo. I build them all for Argo, and they are really a sophisticated set of hardware at this point. But it's a great team, it's a great relationship, and it's come just a remarkable distance in a short period of time.
You know, it's interesting, John. You pointed out that you're a traditional car guy, been at Ford, gosh, I don't know how many years, and
Yeah.
in other companies in the industry too, I think. So tell me how you wound up with this niche, and do you feel lucky about it?
I want to feel incredibly lucky. I wouldn't. There's nothing I'd rather be doing, and nothing I'd rather be working on. This is, this is a moment in the industry, and we will look back at it as as the inflection point of the remaking of the modern auto industry. So I just feel blessed every day to work on it. I have worked. This is inconceivable when I started at Ford 30 years ago. And I've worked across, I think, every part of this industry. I've worked on the manufacturing floor. I've worked on the line. I've worked in all aspects of design and development, advanced development, all the way through corporate finance and strategy. I've spent time inside of Nissan. I've spent time at Mazda. I spent time at our substantial time in our Chinese JVs. I've probably spent a third of my career in Asia, so my career is varied across many different aspects of the industry. But this is one that even a decade ago we probably couldn't have fathomed, and being in this role. So it's been wonderful.
It's something you pursued?
It's certainly something I pursued, there's just no more exciting place. I like building old cars. I like building classic cars. I like working on current model, but there's nothing like creating the future.
What's really nice, or what I think is really nice about this technology, is that on the one hand, it can go in there and really make the product that the auto industry has made for plus 100 years a heck of a lot safer, a heck of a lot better to use, a heck of a lot easier to use by even more people, simply by the addition of really good driver assistance, not just driver warning, but if in fact the car the driver's not doing something, or is misbehaving, or is making a mistake, can really help, which is enormously valuable for the traditional business. And then the opportunity on the other hand to then provide mobility to a whole host of folks that have somehow been left behind by the conventional technology. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and look, if you build classic cars like I do, which is a great hobby, you realize how far the industry has come on safety in 40, 50 years. I mean, it's just astonishing to get into old vehicles that are, that are truly classics that haven't been retromodded. And
right, there's a steering column there, right? It's actually a column, right?
It is.
Wow.
I just, I marvel that we've survived it, and current automobiles are just incredibly safe things. I've certainly been a part of that transition and transformation, and it didn't feel like a transformation. It was evolution, but it was a lot of evolution.
Right.
This is above and beyond that. I mean, the opportunity here to take out the vast majority of human error is unbelievable to think about, because the numbers on how many, even in the U.S., a mature company with lots of safety features, pedestrian protections, and the numbers are still staggering. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the world is even more so.
Even more so.
So the opportunity to massively improve on that, and not just an evolution like the straight line that we've had for the great straight line we've had for many years, but to take a real step function change there. That's one piece of it. Then there's the other piece of it, which is, this is the single greatest productivity improvement of our lifetimes. When this comes into effect and we take away, we've all lived through this in COVID when we stopped commuting, and we went, oh my God, the inefficiency of that, and the amount of my life that's sucked into being in my car. But to give people back productive time, energy, and frankly, cognitive their cognitive time that they can apply towards better things in their lives there's no productivity improvement what we've seen there. I mean, the internet was fantastic and is fantastic and continues to deliver to us and smart devices and all that, but this is a massive step in moving humans both from again the safety and the productivity.
Well, holy
and
smoke, John! Matthew McConaughey had me convinced I wanted to live in my car. Tell us more about Argo here. I mean, you placed this big bet back in 2017, $1 billion. You're the majority stakeholder in Argo AI. And then Volkswagen comes in, and they're a major partner too now. They put, I think, $2.6 billion in. Describe for us how this partnership is designed to work. It's a little confusing maybe for consumers how you can both be the stakeholders in one company developing this.
Well, it's very easy to, it's very important that Volkswagen, ourselves and Volkswagen stay separate in our efforts commercially in a go-to-market sense from an anti-competitive standpoint and other things, and we're extremely respectful of that. But there's great rationale for Volkswagen's involvement here, and again, they've been a great partner through this process. A very tough and challenging. You can imagine the complexity of the deal to put together. But Argo, when it was conceived, again, we had an internal AV effort. We concluded that it probably wasn't going to get there, and even if it was successful, it wouldn't be the platform that it had to be a winner. Our belief is that the asset intensity, the human capital intensity, the intellectual intensity of delivering an AV system is so great that there can only be two players in each geography that are ultimately successful. You need the scale to pay it back. It is a very, very hard business to be in offering at the service level. So whether it's Europe, China, or the U.S., within that geography, we believe the end game is very likely to be two players in each space. If you accept that, even if we had done an internal effort on our own and been successful, it was probably dead on arrival. It's a platform play that needs to be bigger than just Ford. So the structure of Argo from day one was the concept of an AV platform that needed more than one automaker in. Now here's the complexity. If you get more than about two, unfortunately, this is Ford and VW, two companies that know each other, like each other, collaborate on a lot of commercial projects around the world. And we can work through the complexity of Argo and the state that they're in and the speed that they're traveling. Servicing more than about two automakers would be, would probably plow them under. The good news is you've got two that know how to work together, and they're fairly large, and they cover the most meaningful parts of the world for AV. As China has a fair number of restrictions associated with it on AI intellectual property. Europe and the U.S. first, and then Europe, we think, will be the epicenters of commercial applications. And you really get, to get Ford and VW there, you basically wrap up, a quarter of the AV world. With the two partners. So you've got two great partners, you've got appropriate scale, you've got patient capital, and again, you've got the right pH balance of management teams on all sides working together. So we think it's a pretty effective partnership, and we think it has the legs to be highly successful. You said that we're the majority partner. I want to slightly correct you. With bringing in VW, we are equal partners with VW. Okay. And that's very, very, very important in this partnership. That balance. This will not be an easy journey. This will be fraught with surprises. It will be an expensive endeavor, and getting to the point of a scaled AV deployment that becomes profitable is, we will go over several business cycles and other challenges. To have a junior partner in the relationship in that manner, might not be the best thing for long-term relationships. So, equal footing, consistent management, very very focused on the ultimate end game, is what we've put together with our good friends at VW. And again, they are a tremendous partner in this.
The question that I have is that to get to a scaled AV deployment, one has to get started. In other words, that deployment has to begin.
Yep.
There has to be a decision to do it. And if in the piece in which it is an AV deployment, in which the AV part of it is the driver, not the individual, yep, is therefore responsible in some sense for making sure that everything goes well. How do you achieve a point in which you say this thing is good enough for us to go and begin that deployment and do it? Okay, you tiptoe with attendance and so on and so forth and whatever, but that doesn't, yep, economically, that doesn't get you to a profitable. Well, at least I don't think it does. You talk to me, or do you understand what the question I'm sort of trying to ask is how do you internally? You can't even point to the government and say, hey, they anointed it and now we can blame them or something.
Look, this is a problem that doesn't have a clean answer yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Yeah.
And when I talked about patient capital and frankly, the goodness of having a couple partners who are patient. Right. And conservative with their approach towards safety, and right, that's and I couldn't be happier to tell you about. I think you understand where Ford is on safety.
Yeah, absolutely, it has to be, because if it's not, it's going to die. It'll never get there. I mean,
you will never have the trust of consumers. And,
right, never.
Frankly, it's not our brand, it's not our DNA, it's not our heritage to do anything. Yeah. Less than the utmost conservative approach. I'm glad to say we have partners who feel the same way. VW, again, a true safety leader across 14 different brands, and again a very conservative, methodical German approach to safety, very aligned with ours. We also have partners in Argo who are completely aligned with that, and that's one of the reasons that this has worked so well. Brian and Pete, there is never a ray of daylight between us on how we approach moving forward and making sure that safety is at the absolute forefront of what we do. Now that said, you're right, that does create a certain conservatism and slowness in deployment. I think you've done the ride-alongs with us or not?
Yeah.
The rigidity of that operator-driver team, the discipline that goes into that, and Argo is just incredible with it. We will maintain that throughout. Now we may go to no touch, where there's no intervention, but the level of diligence that we will maintain over that until it is clearly demonstrable that this is beyond the capabilities of superior to a human, and we feel comfortable introducing that.
So what is that clearly? What in your mind is that when you're going to say, do it? I mean that is a major, or don't I see it because I'm an academician and I don't understand any of this stuff?
It is. It's not the $64,000 question. It's the $64 billion question.
Yeah.
We're working towards what that is. I don't want to be definitive about that because
you can't be. I mean, of course. Yeah.
It's that you get asymptotic, but then that finish line still has to be defined with a whole lot of data, and I don't want to be out there with promises or things that suggest we're ready to go do that, or that we know exactly when that is. I will tell you that our deployments will be measured in how we open them up. As you pull the driver, it will be over a very controlled environment, and we will expand that geofence with data and knowing that we are doing good things for society, not bad things for society. And it's important that we're extremely transparent with that. And one, it's important that we're rigid about that. And two, it's important that we're transparent so that society and our communities actually accept us. But it will be a slow and measured and careful process that does not accept undue risk on the public as some kind of collateral damage to a great tech future. This is not our way.
Yeah. Well, if it means anything, certainly from academia, I think that is enormously important. The operational design domain is absolutely important.
Yep.
And to properly define that and make everybody understand exactly what that is, shape that with the community who's going to benefit from this and make sure that they are happy with it and agree with it and support you in that process, and that there's true value to them in the provision of this mobility and they believe it. And then, hey, if things happen because, nothing is perfect. I mean, we'd all love to be perfect, whatever, but nothing is. But I think if you do that, then you can do it in this and then grow it appropriately. I mean, this is what I try to tell my students, that's the only way this can happen. Otherwise, it won't happen. Talk to me.
John, maybe you want to tell us, you are testing around the country and you've had to go in and win public acceptance. Tell us where you're testing and how that's done.
We're testing in 6 locations in the U.S. right now. 3 of them are intended launch markets. So obviously, we're testing in Dearborn and Detroit and Palo Alto and Pittsburgh. Those are kind of the engineering center focused pieces of it, and we're on public streets and we're operating regularly. But we have 3 markets that are our go-to-market start points. One is Miami, where we've been for some time. It was our original market. The second is Washington D.C., and the third is Austin, Texas. Great places. They were picked for a variety of reasons. You will notice we consciously, very consciously, did not pick the straight road, warmest, driest climate known to man. Each of those locations brings something unique and different. We also, again, starting in Miami, I don't know how familiar you are with Miami, but what goes on the street there is about as complex as anything in the world. And I have lived all over Asia. I have lived all over America. And what goes on in the street in Miami is as complex an environment to learn as I know of anywhere on earth. And that was a very conscious part of the selection criteria for Miami. We need cities where we can learn. Again, slow, measured progress, but we need the complexity, to start really identifying the edge cases and drawing them out and proving the driver. So, very conscious choices on the cities. We also picked cities that were receptive to AVs, that wanted us in the community and worked with us. And all those communities have been fantastic, and supporting safe experimentation. Again, they've been very interested in understanding our processes and making sure that we're doing very responsible things on their streets. But they've been helpful in working through and supporting our efforts with us.
Well, let me just take this opportunity to say that Trenton, New Jersey is I've been working for quite some time with the mayor and with community groups there to try to create from the grassroots an understanding of this technology as to how it can help people who really could use the mobility the most to improve their quality of life. Yeah. And if one looks at I've at least argued to my students that in fact, Trenton it's somewhat the Peoria of the country in some sense in terms of people who are lower down in the economic spectrum who really, I mean, we have this situation here in New Jersey. You know, we have a great Amazon distribution center in Titusville. New Jersey Transit doesn't serve it. They're trying to hire 1,000 people there to, you know, for $15-16 an hour jobs that for certain families would really improve their quality of life. And there's no mobility there with them, with the conventional way that we've approached this thing, and they really can't afford. You look at where New Jersey has located its affordable housing, where it's in places in which there's no access, there's nothing there. Why? That's where the cheap land is. There's no mobility. I've argued, and you've argued also, that you know, this mobility, what you're creating there is life changing for these families in terms of improving their quality of life, and to do it there is, I think, very important. So we've been working hard to make sure that the community in Trenton is one that says, please come here, as opposed to the technology coming there and look at this great thing we have. Why don't you folks love it? You know, I mean, and you which is in sense exactly what you mentioned with respect to your 3 cities that you're looking at, is what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, think of, you know, right now, if you are to try to commute without a car, live without a car, and commute on Uber, it adds up. Okay.
And the Uber driver isn't getting rich. I mean, you know, oh my goodness, I mean, it's not scalable. I mean, right? I mean, on both ends, it doesn't make, they've missed the affordability piece because they don't ride share, because they don't manage it, whatever. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly it. The opportunity to bring down the cost per mile for people, and not at the same time improve the quality of their transportation experience, lessen their time that they're stuck in traffic. When you do the user experience interviews, you know, I'm not the most empathetic person, and man, when I listen to the stories of people commuting and what they're actually going through in our markets, you know, it's shocking. The quality of life opportunity here is enormous. And to bring down the cost of transportation, to let people reallocate their resources into things that are frankly more important for them, their kids, their families, and you know, reduce the asset intensity of their life is huge. And right now, the only opportunity you have to do that is, you know, is commuting 2.5 hours each way on a bus, which is miserable, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, we have this poster child of a trip from Ewing Township to the Amazon facility. You have to catch a 5:15 bus that takes you to the end of the line, that then there's a shuttle so you can punch in at 7:00 in the morning. I mean, it's an 18-minute Ford Argo ride. Okay. I mean, come on, you know, I mean, I mean, to me, those, the interesting thing that we found in Trenton is that the community is very at the grassroots level, at the people level, not sort of the poobahs at the top and so on. Yeah, we're, you know, but you know, at the very grassroots level, we're really very interested and would very much like to see you there.
Well, John, that strange feeling is that bug that Alan planted in your ear.
Yeah, I wanted to say. No, sorry, John, but whatever. No. You know, hey, look, we're at the very beginning of this. You know, we're at the very beginning of this.
Well, and I sometimes don't feel like the broader community understands the kind of the behavioral transformation that we're potentially going to see out of this.
Absolutely.
I lived 6 years of my life not too long ago in China with my family, and we had a driver, you know, effectively an autonomous vehicle. And at the start of that endeavor, it's convenient to not have to drive in traffic. Okay, maybe you can get some work done, but the real transformation takes place when you realize that this robot does work for you. You know, that it's changing. You know, I watched my wife across this time frame be able to channel time into her children and the things that mattered most for her and the quality of life improvements that enabled by opening up time. And at the same time, when we moved back to the U.S. and it all went away, and I watched that life be sucked out of her, and it is an enormous amount of our cognitive effort ends up in this transportation spiral. That as the machines work for us and do things for us and open up our quality of life, it is transformational, and it is absolute. It will change every element of our behaviors, from how we purchase and buy to how we spend our free time and how we interact with the people that matter most to us. It is a big deal.
Absolutely. I mean, we can talk about the families that don't have any cars, but the families that have one car.
Yeah.
What's the other person left behind? What they're supposed to say, pregnant in the kitchen all day long or whatever, and barefoot. Look, there are, and you look at what happened. You look at the kids and what their opportunities are, and how the chauffeuring doesn't necessarily need to be done by the. Not that there isn't quality time in taking your kid to soccer practice. I mean, please, whatever you. No, I mean, which is exactly what you saw in China is the opportunity here. I mean, it's fundamental.
Yeah, and I did grow up in that family with one used car shared between two parents, and I know that did.
Yeah. Look, I mean, and I mean, those are the ones that are fortunate enough to have one. There are still those that have zero, right? I mean, and sometimes you have two, but you have three kids that are, and what's the 14-year-old do?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, John, along these lines, back in April, Ford announced that the plans to launch an autonomous vehicle service were being delayed because of COVID-19, and you were going to study the long-term effects on customer behaviors. Have you learned anything yet? Are there lessons?
There's certainly one. COVID affected a lot of things, right? And not only our operations and our ability to drive in the short term, our parts supply and other things as we developed vehicles, but it also, frankly, it was there's some, I won't say good in COVID, but it was a healthy chance to exhale and reflect upon our assumptions and the impact that COVID might have on mindsets. Now, I personally don't believe that the long-term impact on the view of transportation is going to be that shaped by COVID. After 1918, people got back on subways, in New York City and Boston, and things returned to normal. But we were running pretty hard into a hype curve, we've been 3 years running very fast, putting together not only Argo and the technology, but the go-to-market approach. And I think COVID was a chance to exhale and reflect upon that. I don't want to go into how that's will modify our go-to-market approach. We might have some announcements in the not too distant future, but it did allow us to really take a minute, exhale, reflect on what we were doing and how we might reflect upon our progress, what we've learned, and how we might execute a go-to-market. And I think that's actually a very healthy moment to do that.
Very healthy. I think that is maybe.
I will tell you the one transfer. Sorry.
Go, no, please.
The one transformation that I think is really real out of COVID is the step function we've seen on delivery of goods and services. That not only will that not be taken back, but it was an accelerant that will be with us for a long time. It reflects a behavioral change in the way we move goods and purchase and buy, and believe me, we take a note of that.
Have you on that end? If you realize that between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m., all this infrastructure that we have for all this mobility is essentially unused. There are no children chasing balls. There are no bicyclists. There are no pedestrian. Epsilon numbers, very few. In fact, certainly some of us want our goods, instantaneously. But an awful lot of the stuff that could be distributed to our wherever we like to have them distributed. Could be done at that time. And doing it with these systems, I mean,
gets rid of a lot of weird off shift labor. Yeah.
Yeah, weird option, right? Which is difficult to manage and so on, and an opportunity to maybe that's one of the early operational design domains that in fact one can go out there and learn it and get it and get some really good experience and so on to allow that thing to. I don't know. I mean, that's.
Well, I don't want to talk specifics.
Yeah, sure. No, don't. I mean,
there are many of us who see more opportunities in moving goods and delivery than moving people in terms of real efficiencies for our infrastructure, for society, and how we, what's running in our, across our street in our daily life and congesting things. There are really cool opportunities to reduce congestion, to give, to participate in giving cities back to people. And that's like I say, it's a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Well, tying into that, John, if you had to sum up what the vision of Ford and your partner Argo AI is for self-driving technology, what would it be? How would you phrase it? And you kind of hinted at something just now.
Well, I think to answer that question, I think you have to start with the vision of how the market evolves. And again, as I said, Argo was always designed as a platform. And we believe there are a couple winners. There can only be a couple winners in the space. It is just too investment and resource intensive to have multiple players, and you have to have the scale. So the first part of our vision is that Argo becomes one of those two platforms that operate in that space. That are the dominant platforms. You might guess who's the other one is. I'll let you fill in the blank. But I personally believe, being on the inside of this and the inside of the industry, I believe Argo is exceptionally well positioned to be that platform. One of the two winners, and frankly, right now it's the most global of the two. So that's of the existing players. So I think that's one part of the vision. The other is the service that sits on top of that and how we go to market. The early, people have visions of autonomous vehicles that they own. It's probably not the best solution for society, but it's also in the earlier and nearer days of this is probably not a financially realistic solution. These vehicles take a lot of care and feeding to maintain them and keep them on the road and keep the asset utilized. They're very expensive. So we are in effect a service operator, becoming a service operator, moving the business of how we make money, which is made money on a single transaction, primarily on a single transaction for 117 years. It's transitioning into a service, a drip revenue stream. Which is good, which is a fine transition. It's maybe not the easiest transition to make, but we view ourselves as an integrated service provider, and ultimately operating multiple form factors to really meet the needs of different consumer segments here, whether that's in moving people or moving goods. There's shared mobility, there's private mobility, and there's a lot of different form factors required to move goods successfully. And the ultimate vision is across a single platform to provide the service, a very efficient service that again drives down the cost of transportation and therefore improves our effective wealth and our the productivity of our markets. So it's a neat thing to think about how this manifests at the end state, and it will take time. There will be more infrastructure involved in corridors and communication between vehicles and a lot more communication between vehicles and the infrastructure. But you can imagine if you do this well, it's an enormous plus to society in terms of reducing congestion, reducing pollution, reducing costs, and again giving our time back to us.
Not many people in the industry say what you just said. And of course, I agree with you 100% on this thing. That to me, this is the real value to really improve the quality of life of individuals in the first place, and those whose quality of life can be most improved. And in fact, in terms of as you, not to quote you, drip, drip, drip of provide doing this on there are 1.2 billion trips every day in the person trips in the United States. Okay, some of them are made by walking, some of them are made by bicycles, most of them are made by cars for which we drive ourselves. We're the worker in their driving.
Yeah.
And so it's not, if all this comes in, it's not a great unemployment thing, because you'll still need the professional drivers out there. They're not going to go away for quite a while, but the people that you're going to relieve and the value that you're going to deliver is all of us as individuals who we're not being paid to do this for ourselves, right? So
last I checked, the washing machine made our lives better, not worse.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. And this is what is doing it. And so anyway, it's really good to hear. Some of the Sunday supplements don't show this, they show a whole different thing associated with this, but this is the fundamental value to me. And that value can go throughout the economic spectrum, from the very poorest to the, so it serves all this community that's been left behind, my goodness, and the improvement that it affords them. So
we'll be back in just
I will put the caveat on that, though.
Yeah.
If you're willing to work with communities and do this right and execute this right, it can be a tremendous advantage.
You have to work with the communities.
It is.
You have to work with the communities.
Has to be absolutely inseparable.
Inseparable. It's not a technological problem. It's a sociological problem. It has to come from them. They have to see it as a value to them. Otherwise, I mean, it's easy to whatever.
Well, we've got to take a quick break to remind our audience that our sponsor is the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more information, you can head to motoetf.com. On the website there, you should read a white paper. It's titled The Smart Transportation Revolution. There's a tab there that it's under, Insights and News. Lots of great information to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, as you may know, can be a smart way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category. The site, once again, is motoetf.com. And we're back with more, and our guest, John Rich, Director of Autonomous Vehicle and Technology Development at Ford. John, Google's Waymo made headlines last week with an announcement that it was going driverless, no safety drivers with its service in the Phoenix suburbs. Any thoughts about that move?
Yeah, it's a part of progression on Waymo's part. They actually have pulled the driver previously and run very controlled rides, but it's a major milestone for them. Waymo's been at this since 2009. They were frankly the originator of the energy into the segment, and I think they just, frankly, they've done a wonderful job of this. Everything they do is precedent setting, and it's plowing ground for the industry. And I do give Waymo a tremendous amount of credit for their conservatism and their methodical approach to bringing the service into market. A lesser company than Waymo might not be doing wonderful things for us trying to play in this space as well. So I give John Kravchuk and his team just enormous credit for what they've done. And I'm sometimes grateful they're in the pole position for this, because it's not easy to plow ground. And John is a former Ford guy, and I think we would expect nothing less from him. So we look at Waymo with great admiration.
Yeah, it's not easy to be the first to pull it, okay, and in that sense, right? It isn't easy. and of course one wishes them well because
Right.
in a sense,
You
I guess we all
you
believe
bet.
that this can work, but until you get it to work, until you can demonstrate it, until you can make that decision to pull the or whatever,
Uh,
so
and look, from my perspective and our perspective here, we, like I say, I'm grateful that we have a company with the mindset and maturity of Waymo in this position.
yeah, as
They
opposed to being a loose cannon out there, who
that
knows what the hell, Jesus, what
good
we
God.
sort of saw that already. No comment. We won't go in that direction,
Well,
but
let's
we can,
let's not go there. But
yeah, let's
like I said,
not
we
go
should.
there. Yeah,
I have just tremendous respect for what
yeah,
Waymo's done, and like I say, I'm glad they're the leading effort in this space right now.
yeah.
What
And
are your
as you
thoughts about
mentioned,
sharing data, the sharing of safety data in this space? How important is it?
Yeah, data is like the trickiest subject on earth here. One, there's so much, there's petabytes and petabytes of data coming that will be coming off these cars. I think the Ford position on data and consumer data. We're extremely conservative with it, and we know we will not have consumers' trust without being conservative and appropriate with their data. At the same time, there's a lot of data that, as you notice, can help that can help cities. That certainly can help advance the state of the art in terms of the progress and safety in AVs. And there's a lot still to work through there. We're open-minded with approaches. We are just very protective of our consumers as well.
yeah. I think you have to be. Of course, you have to be protective of the consumers. Being outside the industry and as an academic, I've argued that the safety data, that's not where all you guys should be competing. That's not,
Yep.
if you trip over a corner case, you should share it. I mean, why have everybody trip over it? I mean, in fact,
I always say competing for AV companies to compete on safety is like cigarette companies to compete on the safest cigarette. It's just not where you want to be.
it's not
You want
what
to be driving.
you,
You want to be driving the floor lower and
right,
improving.
right,
And
because
an event for any AV company is a bad event for every AV company. And
right,
that's the safety consortium. We have the ABSC
right,
where we have everybody in the mix now.
right.
And contributing through the SAE forum and really talking about these things proactively. And again, I don't think anybody in the industry wants to compete on a safety claim. They want to get the safety claim we want to have is massively better than humans and massively improving lives in cities and the safety of you and your environment and for your kids.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think one of the incidents that Waymo had was they had a driver in there, but somebody crossed and jumped a median, came and they had it head on and all that, and they're collecting all their data from that. I mean, to me, they should want to share that to everybody as to what can we learn out of this thing. I mean, sure, we can sort of simulate it, but as we know about simulation isn't Mother Nature. Mother Nature has all sort of little idiosyncrasies, and when you get one of these things in which you've had your whole stack collect the data, then of course
your simulation improves massively with real world
right,
edge cases.
And you need to share that because you all benefit from this, the whole, because we've got to get the industry up there such that the consumers out there actually believe and want you and so on and pay money for you and whatever, trust you. Right. I mean,
and trust is trust broken by one AV effort really affects all.
We've seen that.
And trust is the element that we're just we're hyper focused on.
Yeah.
As delivering from day one. So
do you see potential Congress coming in and making safety away from antitrust? Every time the industry gets together, you have to have 13. I don't know how many lawyers agree that you're not going to. I mean, or don't you think you need that?
I don't know what to expect from government anymore. So
let's leave it at that. Okay. I guess we should leave it.
I will say NHTSA, NHTSA is a good partner here. They are obviously conservative for very good reasons.
Yeah, of course.
I think they will play in the exemption space for some time and gather data before they head into harder rulemaking. And we'll work with them every step of the way to do that. Right? It's there's a healthy relationship there, and needs to be a collaborative one.
Along those lines, do you think it would be valuable to have a separate modal agency dealing with AVs like we have for the Federal Aviation Administrations for airplane and the Federal Railroad Administration for railroads? Or do you think we can have asterisks on the car and say, what are your thoughts? Any thoughts on that?
This is a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either.
It's not a horrible thought, especially as industry expands and we move from hundreds to thousands to millions to billions of trips.
Yeah.
The public, the FAA does a wonderful job of helping to ensure that trust, but also to make, as we talked about earlier, making sure that the learnings are, cascaded across the industry, and they look at the flight safety record that exists, especially in the United States, but all over the world. And that's driven, that's enabled by the FAA and what they do. So it's not a horrible thought, and and this problem gets harder, not easier, and much more complex as it moves on. So it would not be an inappropriate thing.
John, it was reported this week that Ford has taken a more than 7.5% stake in Velodyne, the LiDAR maker that's recently gone public. You think that LiDAR is an important part of the picture, unlike Elon Musk and Tesla?
Well, let me slightly correct that. We haven't taken the 7.5% stake. Okay. We have always had a stake. We've not always, but we've had since sometime in 2017 a stake.
I guess it was valued then.
It was Velodyne went public through a SPAC process. Basically had an IPO through a SPAC, which is an interesting development in capital markets. But they are now a public company. We have been a long-time investor in them. Again, we've been patient capital with Velodyne. Dave, if you've met Dave Hall, Dave is a true genius. He's a wow. His progress through multiple phases of LiDAR. We've been on the journey with him, and we've been at the forefront of his most sophisticated device, which is a 128 beam LiDAR, which is now out and available, and we're very happy to be using.
So your feeling is it really is an important part of the picture here?
Yeah, there's a lot of different opinions on LiDAR, as you know. The approach that most major AV players have taken is that LiDAR is essential in the near term. That there aren't substitutes for it that provide the same, and it's one of a suite of sensors. LiDAR doesn't do everything, but it does some things really well, and it processes very efficiently. Someday we'll be beyond LiDAR, but that someday is going to be a while. And frankly, the LiDAR devices are getting better and better, and frankly more and more useful, not less so. So our approach is with LiDAR, integrated with LiDAR, multiple forms of LiDAR, and we will continue that path. We think that's the prudent and safest way to enter this market.
Alan, the city of Toronto has signed an agreement with a familiar name to us, Local Motors, for its first automated driverless shuttle bus, the 8-seat Ollie 2.0. It's going to begin service there in the spring of next year. So I guess some congratulations are in order.
Yeah, so we've been following Jay and Local Motors for some time, and it's nice that there's some progress being made there. So congratulations to him.
No, I know Jay well, and what a fantastic guy, what a great innovator.
Yeah.
Um,
Princeton
and
guy, you know, of course.
hey, Harvard Business School guy too.
uh, uh,
More recently,
oh,
And Alan, we need to
but
mention the it's talking about Princeton, the fourth annual Princeton Smart Driving Cars Summit is in the planning stages for December. It's going to
yeah,
be virtual, of course. Looks like the 8th through the 10th,
yep.
and still planning on that.
Yeah, we're still planning on it. So of course we didn't do May, and of course we postponed it then to October, and now it looks like December's the time to do it, and do it virtually, and just have people get around and sort of catch up and see where we are. There is evolution, I think. I think you know, in terms of the evolution, the kinds of things that John has been saying here with us today, just you know, they really weren't the kinds of things that the industry was saying even a couple of years ago. You know, I mean, there it is. At least the driverless piece is focused on providing mobility and really looking at a service opportunity with it, and really driving it to that, and driving that opportunity such that it's available to essentially everyone in the operational design domains that are started. But then those operational design domains, once you know, once we learn how to crawl, then we'll walk, then we'll run, then we'll, you know, I guess, right, John?
you know, we're at the start of this, and
Yeah, we're very start.
and sometimes it's hard to imagine how it will eventually unfold, and you know, any predictions will certainly be wrong in both in terms of time horizon and how they end up. But it is certainly you know, the dawn of a very different moment. You know, the stability of the industry for the past 100+ years, and again, Ford's been at it for 117, has actually been remarkable. Very few industries have been that stable, and
that dominant.
And that dominant with you know, and multiple barriers of entry have been part of that, and they're dropping. And you know, the survivors in this space will roll with that and grasp the future and morph with it and run with it. But it's, you know, the long predicted inflection point is clearly here. It's just you'd have to put your head in the sand to deny it between electrification and autonomy.
Yeah, John, you're such an important voice here. I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't say, boy, we hope you'll make the virtual trip to the summit in December.
Yeah. Well, we're going to reach out to you, and we certainly so appreciate your frankness and your joining us here. I think it's important. It's important for people to hear it like this, as opposed to some of the things that still exist when you pick up the Sunday supplement and all this stuff and whatever. And you know,
there is amazing hype and there's amazing misinformation in this space.
Right.
And at the same time, there's just so much going on that's just quite remarkable. Like I said, it's a really unique time in the industry.
It's an opportunity to improve quality of life, to improve the environment, to improve the economy, to improve. I mean, there's almost not a downside to this thing. And in fact, if it also accelerates going to EVs, that they may not even need the acceleration, but of course, there's no range anxiety here when you're managing this, because you know who you're going to serve. You pick the vehicle, you through management, you deal with it. So all of a sudden you can make the proper decision environmentally in terms of what is the propulsion system and so on, and which that best serves that. So
Yeah, well, I mean, the marriage of EV and AV, especially given the duty cycles, is really you know, quite obvious, right?
Obvious.
The early days of this are not as simple as they should be, because the you know, the driver, the robot, uses a fair amount of power, and and that's you've got a tough balancing act of power consumption versus battery sizing and recharging events. And battery technology today is also you know, there's you need to keep your asset in motion. expensive asset. You got to keep it running. You want to fast charge it. If you fast charge it, battery life comes down dramatically. Very expensive piece of the car. These things are engineering challenges. They are not beyond the wit of man, but they are engineering challenges we grapple with. Most of the players to date have started with a hybrid application just because of that balance of energy density and uptime. But there's no question that convergence state is really actually much closer than anybody thinks. We say that our first application will be a hybrid, and our last application will be our last hybrid. We will never do one beyond the first one.
Right. And in a sense, also, as this is all Moore's law-ish type thing. So as scale and as we put more intelligence into this thing, we're not going to end up brute forcing this thing. We're going to end up making it even more elegant. It's going to end up using less energy. It's going to end up having fewer things, all those things out there. We just got to get the darn thing started. I mean, the idea that getting it going is still the major thing.
John, we want to encourage our listeners too to follow your blog posts, the blog posts of your team, also on Medium. Great stuff.
Thank you. We're trying to get I'll call it a steady stream of credible information out. There is a lot, as you know, a lot of distracting information, but it's Dan and his team are really trying to make sure we have a methodical and credible set of information that's put forward.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time with us and in helping to get the information out. We can't thank you enough. Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO. More information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, now Amazon Music too. You can get your smart speaker to play us, and you can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.
Thank you.